Is it morning, afternoon? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for honoring our press conference. And some of you have been looking for me, but unfortunately, I was locked up in a number of series of meetings, but here I am now. The conference is proceeding, and in the next 15 minutes to 20 minutes, it will be starting. The Deputy President has arrived, and then it's just a few delegates that were still outside that are now moving into the hall. The accreditation of delegates has not yet been completed. Only one region now that they are dealing with. Almost 50% of the region is done, and some of their delegates are here, Dr. RSM, and then the remainder, obviously, they will then be joining in as fully accredited delegates, because the first session of the program is more prayers and welcome remarks, and then ultimately with the Deputy President opening. Those first session will be open to the media, and then when we move to the closed session, all delegates probably will be all in and then accredited, and that's when then we'll then be dealing with the court matter as the first item in the closed session, which I will be reading the statement from the Treasurer General as acting Secretary General on the matter of the court. However, the understanding and the collective decision is that the conference is not interdicted, therefore it will be proceeding as is, and then we'll be able then to then start with the business of the conference duly. The only affected party in the conference is your IPC members. 22, as cited in the court order, will no longer participate as voting delegates. However, they will now participate as non-voting delegates, and their participation is not in question either. So it's just the voting that we need to honor and respect the courts, because we are this law-abiding organization that once the court have declared will then definitely observe it to the latter. The business of the conference will be managed both by the ANC members, NEC members, and then however the presentation of the reports will still be done by members of the IPC, and obviously there's an item called adoption of the program, and then they are all listed as to who gives organizational report, who gives financial report, and who does the political input. And then obviously the chairing of the sessions will be pairing NEC members in the commissions to co-chair with the IPC members, because IPC is not interdicted, is not dissolved by the court itself. And then we'll also then be working in the working steering committee of the conference. The NEC will be chairing, and then the IPC members will still be fully functional in that particular steering committee, which is the highest body in the conference until the emergence of top five at the point when they get elected, and they will then take over. And then later, then additional members will then be voted. But the top five will then start taking over the conference at the time when the results are announced, later tonight or tomorrow morning. And the credentials will also be subjected to the closing session. We have dealt with quite a number of issues in the credentials through the Provincial Dispute Resolution Committee to the National Dispute Resolution Committee. Quite a number of names were cleared yesterday. I think there's a rumor that we were changing delegates. We're not changing any delegates. It is the application of the gender parity, that if it's two men who are there as delegates, we do phone that branch to say, we have opened our pack and we are now seeing two men that are there. One should have been a woman and one a man, and the guidelines are clear. So at the time when the BGMs or BBGMs were sitting, they should have done that. But then it was only about 7 of those that were affected by that particular nature. And then the other packs, it was where there was nothing, there were no nominations, and then there were no delegates. Then we had to phone those branches if they have the packs, and then they will then submit. And then the last was when the date of the pack and the date of the the submission of the nominations do not correspond, and then we also have to phone engage and verify, and then whatever is verifiable at that particular point in time, then to rectify. And the steering committee is the body then that clears as the PACs were opened last night. And then the team of the PACs is now looking at the nominations now. They are still going to be auditing because quite a number of people were nominated quite widely. I must say, but you must reach a particular threshold, and we'll announce at that time when the Electoral Commission come in to say who has qualified as a contestable candidate and those that could not because there were fewer branches that will have nominated them. And then I think it will clean itself. And then the floor is still available for those who want to contest, and then where you need to gather 25% of the total delegates from there. I think I'm so happy that finally we're on the road, and then, yes, there were technical issues of delay of the start of the administration because we had to clean all the delegates as the envelopes were open and sign them off with the regional coordinators so that then the delegates then can then be confirmed. And then, but almost 70% to 80% of the delegates are now confirmed as accredited, and then they are inside the venue of the meeting as we speak. Thank you very much.
No, thanks, Bra Ops. Before I open the floor for questions, it's quite important, Bra Ops, that we also help members of the media with a general understanding of the ANC Constitution. All of the issues that Bra Ops has clarified are actually covered by the Constitution. Specific rules under 17.1, 17.2, which actually says that the conference will be held, the provincial conference will be held once every 4 years and more often if requested by at least 1/3 of branches in good standing in the province. 17.2.2 of the ANC Constitution deals with the composition of that conference, that at least 90% of delegates to conference will be branch delegates, at least 90%. It can be over 90%. The second part of that deals with the second category of delegates to conference.
10%.
This is part of the 10%. This is now members of the Provincial Executive Committee. In the instance of the Northwest Province, it will be members of the IPC. The third category is the Regional Executive Committee. In this instance, it will become the IRC. So the 17.2.2, the 17.2.3, all of these deal with category of that ANC delegation made up or constituted by the 10%. We're saying this point so that we can help empower each other on ANC processes. Perhaps yesterday when a court ruling was made, more than one media house went with a story that the provincial conference has been interdicted, creating confusion amongst members of the ANC in the province of the Northwest, but also amongst members of the ANC throughout the country. Because the ANC is not just it's not a federal structure. We're a unitary organization. We exist in all the 9 provinces, in 53 regions. So we're going to appeal to members of the media that when you are unsure of issues, we are available to help empower yourselves, understand this thing. We have also seen, Bra Ops, even outside the courts, those that had gone to court misinterpreting what is the decision of the court. Comrade Robert has clarified it. The court dealt with an issue of the first respondent. Who is the first respondent in this matter? The first respondent is the IPC. So you don't ventilate your issues in the body of the argument and forget to list all your respondents where you are supposed to. Because when the judge makes a ruling, they concern themselves on who is the respondent. They said that we must pay the respondent must pay all the fees of the application, and then they also dealt with who participates in that. Fourth, this clarifies the issues. So we'll open the floor for questions. Comrade Obed is here. He will be able to clarify all of your questions. Otherwise, all the other issues will be contained in the statement that Comrade Robert is going to be presenting to conference on behalf of the Secretary General's office, which effectively uses a number of these constitutional provisions to be able to clarify our understanding of the order and the work that now needs to be done to take forward the 9th Provincial Conference, as well as the status of the IRC and the leagues in this conference. We may now proceed to entertain questions. Ule, eNCA. Usabat?
No.
He thought about it.
Hey, no.
Of course, I'm writing down.
Yeah, that's fine. No.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way.
Clarity on
Yeah.
so does this mean that the NEC takes over the conference? That's question number one. And
The NEC does what?
does this mean that the NEC takes over conference now that the IPC will not be participating within the voting process? Number two, are you aware about a court application that has also been launched just now that now seeks to interdict the conference in its whole entirety as well? What's the response on that? Maybe just secondly, I have this down in terms of looking at the challenges that have come with the conference. Do you think you've been outspoken on suspicions of questionable branch delegates for this conference as well? Do you think that's been a process and that's been a problem in looking at the legitimacy of branch delegates? Thank you.
Okay, before I hand over to Comrade Obed, you will clarify the issues. But just to help you, because Comrade Obed made that point. You see, your Rule 12.1 of the ANC Constitution makes the National Executive Committee the highest decision-making body in between conferences. It actually compels us to direct the work of the organization overall. And Comrade Obed never said that the PEC, the IPC won't be running. He said the only powers that they are forfeiting is voting. But all other things they are going to be doing.
And we'll work jointly with them.
I just want clarity on that before you say we are distorting the message or whatever. So
Okay, you can repeat it with an adult voice.
yeah.
Okay. No longer youthful. No,
Okay.
we are not taking over everything of the conference. The IPC will still be functional, organizing body of the conference. The only power that they forfeit as a result of the court order is the voting power. However, they will be presenting reports, they will be chairing some of the commissions, and then even the plenary, we might even be co-chairing with them, and then so that we could then have a smooth beginning. And then that beginning, obviously, will start with the opening ceremony. It will be chaired by the IPC. And in the closed session, because the NEC will be presenting a statement by the Treasurer General, then it will then be chaired by the NEC, and the statement will be read. So it's not taking over, it's helping and assisting each other. As Comrade Pule was saying, the ANC is unitary. We have different functions governed by the Constitution. The new interdict, yes, we've heard about it last night, and I was also told, and I told Pule last night, in the early hours of the morning, that they were going to look for me somewhere in Rustenburg, me and my comrade Novula Mukonyane, because they know we're in Rustenburg, to serve us. So we have not yet been served, and then until maybe they serve us, we sign, and then it might then be a matter in court if they get a date. But it doesn't bother us for now. It's an intention that is there. It doesn't stop the conference from starting, and we hope, therefore, we'll be starting in a few minutes. And the questionable delegates, the credentials will clarify, will answer those questions at that point. And I don't know what are they now as you are speaking, as you are presenting them, but then we'll hear them from the floor, and they will be clarified quite the number of them. And if there's substance in any of them, we'll then assign the steering committee to go and then deal with the matter and bring it back to the floor of the conference. Thank you.
Okay.
I hope the adult has explained.
Yeah, you're covered. Okay.
From the cameras.
Okay.
Somebody from the far side asked the questions. Can you just keep your
Just keep my focus. Thank you very much.
Okay. No.
No, we no longer need these things.
Oh, okay. No,
I've
that's
got
fine.
paper now.
We are covered. We'll take Ntebu and Khaogelo from a news note.
Yes. Is it your understanding, when you were explaining your interpretation of this contract, you did not refer to the other interim structures at the regional level? Is it your understanding that they too are barred from participating And then the second question pertains to the several branches that you say were directed to reconfigure their delegations in order to accommodate women. Is this, I'm assuming this is meant to achieve a 50-50% representation in the conference. Does it mean that with the few other conferences that you've seen at provincial levels, that the ANC achieved this in terms of the composition of the delegation? It was 50-50 consistently, how the KZN, the recent ones that were.
No, that's fine. Comrade Robert will come and answer after Ndego, but just to assist you quickly so the does not repeat itself. The court order says, especially on the second part, so that is not our understanding, it's what the judge wrote. We did not write this with the judge. It says, it is declared that the first respondent does not have the voting powers in the ANC Provincial Conference, scheduled from the 12th to the 14th of August 2022. As a reina, the judge, you are court order. So, Comrade Robert will answer the rest. This is not our understanding, it's what the judge wrote. I type again. He type like judge. Yeah, so we need to try and push. I'm told that DP's here. You say, "What conference you are having?"
Okay, the SAPC. I know we've spoken about it, but maybe another voice will help. The ANC, it's a conference resolution that discouraged members of the ANC not to take the party to court or the organization to court, but to rather use internal party process or internal mechanism to ventilate their disagreement or their anger. But despite that, the ANC has been taken to court over and over again. What is that you're missing as the ANC to discourage members to take the organization to court? Because even now with the court case, is it because you don't have the capacity or maybe the objectivity or maybe being objective to deal with internal party processes? Then members ultimately resort to court because you don't have the capacity to deal with that. Do you lack objectivity? That's why people resort to court.
Okay, Mara, okay.
Okay, on the regional structures, they are not cited in the court order. I know in the argument they were mentioned and cited, but the judge concluded by only saying the IPC and listed the names of those that cannot participate and vote. And therefore, the issue of the regional structure, we had engaged on it as NEC members deployed to this conference. We are still further engaging and seeking legal what does it mean. For now, their status is voting delegates until such time that we are advised otherwise, but they are not cited as not participating. And if we could then begin to proceed with that particular understanding. Yes, it is the IPC that has appointed those structures. And then did the IPC extend their mandate? They were not extended with a mandate. We are also looking the view as to what are the implications by virtue of the IPC not extending the IRC's mandate of life. And therefore, we will then be taking the matter to the steering committee during the course of the conference, and an update on the matter will then be presented to you at a point to say this is the final conclusion on the matter, but allow those internal engagements and discussions to be concluded with our lawyers and then the understanding of the court order. The issue of the branches and the 50%, I don't have the stats of Gauteng, KZN and every other conference, but by virtue of the membership of the ANC, what I've seen, majority are women. But then when it comes to the issue of choosing delegates, then you find that men are chosen to be the delegates. That is why we're putting now this principle that for every 2 delegates, there must be a female, there must be a male. And then if you have to go to, and if there are 2 females, it's okay, we don't change it. And if it's two men, definitely will then alter that and make sure, therefore, that it takes us to the achievement of that particular. It's a mission, it's a historic mission that the ANC is involved in. We know that it will gonna take time. We live in a patriarchy society, but the ANC is doing all to make sure, therefore, that we reach that gender parity. Even when we send delegates to Parliament, to the legislatures, to the council, the responding party that is giving the gender parity a seriousness is the African National Congress compared to all other parties. If the ANC can withdraw that, it will be all men across all legislatures, council, because the other parties are not. And then I think there's a proposal towards the policy conference, going to the conference, that maybe a law ought to be enacted that all parties must bring gender parity to all bodies of representation, but it is subject to policies of the ANC, whether it will make it as a law in the country. It will then go through all the passages of the processes, because we take gender very, very serious. On the issue of the objectivity, we don't lack objectivity as the African National Congress. Some matters are complex and very difficult, and from time to time they will challenge us, but we do give consideration, and then we also give and respond. But when people are not satisfied with the internal processes, there's nothing that stops them from approaching the court to seek an arbitration of some sort. But matters internally, we do engage, we do exhaust, but at most often you find those situations where they are not happy, and then it is the right, even though we do discourage members from going to the court, but at the end, after resolving the matters, or sometimes the matters move slowly in the ANC because we are this big organization too, and with so many issues that we deal with, and some people lack patience, and then they will then decide to take the matter to court, and we then do go there to defend ourselves. But if you can understand on this matter, the ANC went to court yesterday to defend on 3 areas: the urgency, as to whether this matter is urgent, and we lost on it. Secondly, the jurisdiction of the court, Mabatu, because the headquarters of the ANC is in Litule House in Johannesburg. And then we are not cited, but because we are a unitary organization, we also offered our availability to go in there, because any part of the body of the ANC that gets interdicted, the ANC is a unitary organization. We lost on that one, and then obviously the cost, as indicated, and also the IPC, that they cannot vote. So the substantive matters that could have been presented were little presented. And then are we going to appeal? The matter is not appealable now. However, we'll then begin to look at the other course of legal advices at a particular point in time, guided by the National Working Committee, which will be engaging through the Office of the Secretary General with the legal team to say, do we want, because it has a far-reaching implication for Free State that has an IPC that is extended. It has a far-reaching also for the Western Cape that has an IPC that is extended. And therefore, we then have to really, as those are all pending conferences, then to go back and then see if we cannot do so. And then we'll then be advised on the matter because of the far-reaching implication. Thank you.
Thanks, Bra Ops, for that comprehensive response. We can take that, maybe
the last two.
The last 2, 3 hands. Okay. On gender, before you come in, you asked across provinces where we have held, at least I would have had the privilege to attend almost all provincial conferences that said, I can confirm that all of them achieved the 50% parity. What Comrade Obed and the team are trying to do in the Northwest is to make sure that we do not lose on that important principle of gender representation. So it's well within the work that we do in the organization. It's nothing unusual. I've clarified to the point, and I want to amplify this so that Comrade Ndebo doesn't think that we are not together. What Comrade Robert is saying is exactly what I said to you yesterday. We are not going to punish.
You wanted a different
Yes,
view.
no one are to punish about because they've exercised their right to go to courts. What we must do is to draw lessons and say, what are the lessons that the ANC can learn from the outcomes of the courts? Do what Comrade Robert is talking about. Try reinforce our own internal processes. remove any shadow of doubt. Make sure that when structures are meant to work for 9 months, well within that period, they deliver on what is expected.
I wanted an adult voice.
No, but we're fine. I mean, you can hear. I mean, this.
The adult and the young speak one voice.
So the voice is one. Okay, you can come in, and then you will go, and then you will be the last. So we take all the hands, and then you can answer at once.
Mr. Wade, just a clarification question. What's going to happen to IPC members who are contesting?
IP members, yeah. I agree the members of the ANC in good standing. Pella, for you to stand in an ANC conference, you don't necessarily need to be a voting delegate. Okay, I'm going to brief him.
And but I will check our.
So check out we are a member. So they are allowed. Yeah. So if they've qualified, they will accept. They will sign nomination forms.
If they qualify.
If they qualify.
Because the number of nomination must be particular number of branches that nominates you for a position.
But because remember, we recognize that they are inside the conference. We know that they are in the conference. It's just that their status has been altered. But they can stand. They are members of the ANC in good standing.
Number two.
Number two.
Yeah, my name is Patrick Dimpa from the SABC. Dr. Mapela, as the convener of ANC employees in this province, given this latest development about the court cases, the looming court case that is coming, interdicting the conference, surely as one of the NEC leaders responsible for this province, you should be worried about this latest development, precisely because the Northwest is known as a province that is deeply divided, factionalized. I believe you should be worried, and I know the ANC says it wants to build and renew itself and forge unity within itself. Do you believe we are going to have a mammoth task in terms of ensuring that we want to intend implementing in the Northwest?
Yeah, my fellow.
Okay, the last one.
Sure. My name is Mwande from the Sunday Times. Perhaps for full context, in terms of the issues that have been ventilated, I want specifics in terms of numbers. For instance, Reva Bella, on the issue of those branches that had to redo their composition of a delegation, how widespread was it in terms of the specific number? How many branches? How many regions? And in terms of the constitution of the conference itself, the composition of the delegation, how many branches in good standing were there? How many made it? How many didn't make it? How many in totality of the number itself of the delegates are expected in terms of those that made it into conference? And what is the biggest region in terms of the delegation, and what is the lowest? Thank you.
So no comrade over now for the credential.
Not necessarily, but we're usually giving
Just the figures.
Okay. No, that's fine.
No. Thank you very much. We are indeed will keep on being seized with the Northwest issue, because the objective of the rebuilding in the Northwest in the past years was really to build unity, renewal, and the rebuilding of the African National Congress. We knew it's a process, it's not an event which is once off, and along the way there will be pitfalls, and then we'll keep on rebuilding and then trying to forge that particular unity. And obviously, in the rebuilding, if you remember that the Patrick Dintwa, we had a situation where there were the parallel structures. Now we no longer hear of parallel structures in the Northwest. It's an achievement. And then all branches that are there, no one is contesting their status. And then there's no situation where they are parallel. And therefore that is one achievement. And we had to start from zero base. That is why it took longer. But then along the way, there was COVID also, where there were lockdowns, we could not operate, we could not do anything. And therefore those matters became a factor. But whether we have achieved unity, we are in the process and will still continue to do so. The election of the new PEC is very, very, very crucial for us to cement and consolidate on the gains and then to advance on those areas that we think we didn't do well. And then also reconnecting the African National Congress to the people, the voters in particular, because if you could see in the recent local government elections, the province used to win elections by 67% from 77, 87. Now we're at 54. That then tells you, therefore, that the connection of the African National Congress to the people is dwindling and declining. So part of the rebuilding is to have a quality leadership that will emerge, and then a leadership that can then be decisive, make sure, therefore, that it arranges the affairs of the ANC as mandated by the branches. Because when you are in interim, it's difficult, and you need to navigate yourselves through the chartered water. But however, with a solid structure in place and the leagues that are now emerging, the Youth League has just gone to a conference last week. They've got the regional leadership newly elected. The Women's League, they are still just established a task team. They'll be also preparing. The Veterans League is the only Veterans League that has an elected structure in the province. So we could then see, therefore, that there are good signs and then there are good activities that are arising, and therefore we are not going to be discounting. But unity, renewal, rebuilding is going to be fast-tracked and it's going to be consolidated. On the issues of the numbers, we have 316 branches of the ANC now built in the Northwest, and out of 405 wards. So we should be present in the 405 wards. We are present in 316 wards. So it's an achievement also, and I think we're growing in that particular environment. In the conference, there are 294 branches that are qualified because some tried to go to the BGMs. They didn't succeed out of the 316, but then 294 are here. And the delegates that are here in totality is 778. That includes the 90% and also the 10%. But in the 10%, we'll then be reducing the 22 votes. But even when after reducing it, we still are over the 70% threshold, which is good. Then the conference will still proceed. And then the league's votes are not affected in the 10% as allocated, and then there are full voting delegates, Youth League, Women's League, and the Veterans League. So they will be participating within those particular votes. There's a matter that has been thrown to the steering committee for consideration on what we do with the 22 votes. The view is that just leave them without a participant. We don't allocate them to branches. We don't allocate them, but we leave it to the steering committee to conclude because they're still discussing. But the 22 for now, the standing is that we are not going to be reallocating, but there might be a push during the what is this thing? Yeah. The credentials report as to the view whether we change it, and the conference will take a decision. Yeah?
There are
20
votes. So there are 22.
Oh, 20. Oh, there are 22, but it's only 20 votes. Yeah.
Because it's ANC, they cited ANC and the IPC.
And the IPC, yeah. And then the members, yeah. It's 20. Sorry about that. It's 20 votes that will be setting aside. I hope, therefore, we need to release it to go to a conference here.
We'll release them, but I'm sure that they wanted to know about the status of the IRC, that it is properly clarified, as Comrade Ops has mentioned, that for now, their status remains unless we are advised otherwise. So it must be understood that 10% will be made by the allocation that was originally done for the leagues and for the interim regional committees, as per what the P is. So you're not going to increase the number. You leave them as they are. If there were 5, it means you're only taking 5 per region or per league. So you don't change it to try and make up the 10%.
Within the 10%.
Yes.
90% remains as the gathering of the branches.
Yeah. Actually, to comment Comrade Ops and his team as we conclude, it means that this will be one conference where over 90% of delegates are from branches. So that's a huge achievement, because when you take out the 22, it means that you increase the 90% of branches. because the constitution says at least 90%. Now it means there are more. So it means the NEC team that was working here did quite a sterling job. So we expect yourselves now to go and give the nation the good news. Thank you very much. We will keep on, so just as we conclude, we'll keep on inviting yourselves to give updates.
After the statement in particular.
After the statement in particular, we'll come back with Comrade Obed. He will be presenting the statement now to yourselves. So you need to be within reach so that you can cover
Update yourselves.
things as it happens. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.